We decide which risks are worth taking and which rights are essential. 2 years ago, if you were to tell any of us that our kids' noses and mouths needed to be constantly shielded to receive an education, we would never have believed you. It would be unthinkable that a child's face, the most beautiful of God's creation, wouldn't be shared with this world. We would have called it child abuse, and we wouldn't have been wrong. The idea that people up there in a boardroom, people who have never even met our children, people who haven't picked up our 5-year-old wearing a cloth mask soaked in saliva, people who haven't frantically called counselors and therapists begging for help, people who haven't held our child after a day of trouble breathing, people who we did not even elect are making the most mundane and simple decisions for our children is unforgivable. We gather today from all corners of the state with one demand: allow us to choose. Give us, the parents, back the right to decide what is best for our children. We will gladly take that heavy burden off of those in power and carry it for ourselves, because that is what God has called us to do. This afternoon, we are very fortunate to have 10 passionate and knowledgeable leaders who will speak on behalf of our collective cause. Many of you know our first speaker. She's running alongside Dan Cox as his lieutenant governor, Ms. Jordana Schiaparelli.
Thank you, Americans, children. This is the time for us to stand against tyranny of this current government. It's a tyranny against our children. 2 years ago, I stood before the Board of Education, just like you are in Queens County, to elect newly free patriotic Board of Education. 2 years later, now, we have people in Maryland legislature trying to prevent local boards of education deciding about our children's curriculum, what they wear, and how they grade. This is not America. This is not the land of the free. This is not what the children are supposed to do. Our children are our future. Our children are the future of Maryland. Someone there in this building needs to come down and explain to us, how is it okay for a child to get loss of oxygen in their brain? There is no COVID that is more dangerous than the suicide rates that are going on rampant in our school system. My son's schoolmate committed suicide 4 weeks ago. And it is because of you. It's because of bureaucrats that could care less about our children and their well-being. Please go and take a look at my YouTube video where it says, our children are the future of Maryland. Right Republicans and extreme Democrats are responsible for this debacle in our state. Baltimore City high schoolers cannot read on the first grade level in many instances. Focus on education and not political tyranny. Our children are our responsibility. They belong to parents and parents alone. Please mask up and go freely and breathe freely the air of freedom in Maryland. Vote for me and Dan Cox, and we will bring you freedom.
Thank you, Jordana. What a way to kick it off. Next up, we have Amy Adams of the Baltimore County Parent and Student Coalition. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Jordana. It's a tough act to follow. It's wonderful to see so many of you here today. I know a lot of our roots with forums are mine over parents' choice to safely send their kids back into school, just as many places around the country and our state were already doing. We're here today to advocate for the same thing, a parent's right to decide whether their child wears a mask at school. A statewide or countywide mandate is no longer needed. In fact, adults are no longer required to wear masks in most of this state. But what about the kids? Maryland was one of the last 3 states to reopen public schools last spring. Maryland is now one of the last 4 states with a mask mandate for public school children. It's embarrassing. Our leaders learned nothing over the last years to improve their practices and better serve the kids of this state. The data shows our students have suffered social, emotional, and academic loss. The pandemic didn't cause this. The state's response to the pandemic did this to our children. Policymakers in the state have done this to our children over the last 2 years. They've decided that Maryland public school kids needed to carry the burden of public health. They stole their childhood for 2 years, and now will be one of the last states to admit it and allow our kids to begin to heal. We're here today to demand the end of the mask mandate. According to one local health department, cloth masks are 0% effective. So for 2 years, our kids have been wearing a mask that is 0% effective, and yet here we are. There is no evidence to continue this. I was listening to the meeting on my way down. You know what they're saying in there? A couple more weeks. Now's not the time. Another month. We need to wait. We have to see what's coming next, the next variant. You've got to be kidding me. The rest of the country is removing this mandate. If you have a vulnerable loved one, protect them. But let the rest of us decide for our families. We parents will never forget how our state and local school leaders treated our children during this pandemic. We are actively working towards November 2022, and we're ready for leaders who will speak for our children, who are some of the most vulnerable citizens that don't have a voice. Maryland, we can do better. We can do a better job protecting our kids, meeting their basic needs, educating them, shaping them into independent and responsible young adults who can positively contribute to our communities. Today, we want MSDE to not only remove the mask mandate and all of the off-ramps, we want MSDE and the Maryland Department of Health to encourage schools to remove masking requirements today.
Yes, today, that's right. Is Richard Porter? Richard Porter, is he here yet? Ah, there you are. All right.
Hey everybody, I'm Richard, citizen journalist on Telegram. If you don't have Telegram yet, I highly recommend it. I just want to speak a little bit about one of the initiatives we've been working on, which is Bonds for the Win. So basically all the school board officials are bonded, and they take an oath to be bonded, and there's a channel on Telegram called Bonds for the Win, and what they're doing is they're pulling the bonds and serving the board members, and the board members are being forced to resign. It's happening now all over the country. If you're not following this, I'm going to post a video in about an hour that's a trailer of what they're going to, movie they're going to produce. It's really amazing. This all started for me. I had a job in Maryland, a top sales rep, and my boss came to me and said, you need to wear a mask to do your job. I said, well, I'm not doing that. I'm never going to wear a mask. Why would I ever do that? It makes no sense. Shortly after that, I drove by a hospital, and I saw it was completely empty. This is the beginning of the pandemic. And I've been filming that and showing that since. And so, and the bottom line is, Maryland and Montgomery County just said yesterday that they're dropping the mandate in the county, but they're still keeping the masks on kids. So the initiative, what I would encourage you to do is find out where your school board meetings are, show up there, get on Bonds for the Win, get some paperwork. You can sort of letters of intent, and it's working. Okay, so that's really all I got.
Thank you. And we have Megan Buckley, who's a licensed psychologist who specializes in treating children and adults. Children, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Well, yeah, my specialty in psychology is children and adolescents. And I have a private practice in Annapolis. And before that, I taught in the doctoral program at Loyola. And I ran their social skills program for 6 social emotional development, I just want to remind everyone of a simple fact. Our doctors don't wear cloth masks because they don't work. Right? So there's two large studies, the largest randomized clinical trial in Bangladesh on looking at cloth masks in the general public, and then also the CDC's very own study in Georgia schools, right, that they completely buried, because both of them show that cloth masks don't work. So when Dr. Chowdhury talks about research, these research-based strategies, he's talking about utilitarian public policy research. What government officials look to, the whole scope of it, studies research that shows them that use force to change the population to make it primitive, right? So that's the research he's looking at. What he's not looking at is all the other public health policy research that shows that a voluntary public health system actually works better, okay? That maintains public trust. The vaccination rates are actually higher when there's a public voluntary health policies, and we save more lives. And we have that more for 50 years because suddenly the schools got together with their public health system and decided utilitarianism and central planning was the way. And the way that that system works is that it depends on a central planner who has to guess what's best for everyone. And then they put that value, right, forcing vaccination, over the pain and suffering of any individual child. That doesn't matter because we're dealing with a policy that's based on the collective best interest instead of actually treating each of our children with dignity. So, face-to-face communication is fundamental for healthy child development. When a mother first has an infant, the first thing that she does is that football cradle, and that's called on thought, which means on base, because she's gazing into that child's face. This is imperative for social emotional development and bonding. So children